Jonah didn't like it. Look at that guy's belly button. Mr. Oh, what is his name? Mr. Slunchy, Mr. Grungy. His belly button was always mistaken for a rather stylized men's genitalia. I don't think it was ever intended, but if you look close enough and you have the right sort of mind, you can see what people are seeing. And we never really got very sexual on this show. Most twisted cartoons, you have a lot of rampant sexuality going on, but we didn't really. I think the show is so twisted and offensive that I think everybody enjoyed themselves a lot more working on it. Didn't have to go looking to put in little subversive things every once in a while. There was also a sequence cut out here. It was originally a very long script, and this sequence had to deal with basically going into Zim's dream of earning $1 million or millions of dollars, and then he ruled the earth because everybody in the world praised him for his candy selling skills. He ends up riding an elephant and putting Dib in a cage and talking to the crowds about how he's going to kill everybody, crowds of earthlings. Mrs. Bitter's medical strip thing, a lot of people have misunderstood that too, the voiceover. Bitters was supposed to be saying that, I think originally because we couldn't use the name Band-Aids, and so we just, as a ridiculous, or True Heart and Jonah, they came up with the idea of just putting a ridiculous voiceover on to mask the term Band-Aids. But I personally interpreted it that they always changed that prize, so there's always a voiceover on the video, and she had a voiceover as well that matched that ever-changing prize. One way or the other, it's just a odd and weird touch to the show. Never came out quite as good as we intended. And another weird ending for Zim. We always had odd endings. This one just, drags on and you got some weird music. We were always accused of very quick endings. And as you can see, I just stretched out that fade off to sort of get over a tough time having to redo scenes and spend a lot of money. This is a commercial break. FBI warning. This was storyboarded, written by Frank Conniff. Yeah, this I think was Frank's premise. And I thought it was a pretty nice premise. Another show that never thrilled many people. Kyle and Sean worked on this as board artists. They were a really good crew. There was Rob Hummel, and there are my credits. Louis Del Carmen, the board supervisor, put in all my name in different ways as the credits of that movie. Originally, they were a bunch of lewd names, such as Yuri Thra and Jenny Talls as the actors and actresses of that movie. Intestines of War. But we were asked to change. If you look on the internet, you can find that FBI warning somewhere. Kids somehow found out every word to that and pasted it up somewhere on the internet. I love Rob Hummel calling up. Rob and Jonan used to work in a video store back before they were on this series. And I think that's probably where that came from a little bit. Having Rob in there. You could see Ricky walking around in that video store. Jonan always thinking ahead wanted to make it discs, no tapes, so there are all these little discs on the walls if you wonder what those little circles are in that video store. This was a tricky part too. The FBI the FBI pictures here as the computer flubs its way through. Got a little bit of problem. That corn there, New York again broke down on us. Had a gun in his hand, obviously. And when we couldn't use a gun, there were several other implements we tried. I believe corn is what Jonan finally settled on. And somehow we got away with that. Again, I thought this was a very good premise. Again, it's just him dealing with the world. And getting caught up in a very minor, a situation that he creates on his own. There's Rob. And that's Jonan's voice. Zim uses a little voice changing thing, which makes you wonder if he has any mechanics in his throat that he can use. He can change the mechanics of his throat, maybe with that thing, or maybe that little device constricts his throat. Who knows? There's always something to contemplate in these shows. There was a lot of rich science fiction, a lot of rich creation going on. Gur's little flip out here. This is the most entertaining thing was to work with Ricky in the booth, because he always came in very tired, Ricky doing the voice of Gur, and to get this scream out of him, I remember I always had to do a hand level thing to get him to go higher and higher. We had to do many, many takes to sort of get his blood sugar up. And then every time he was done screaming, you know, the way that it was needed for the episode, he would always have his asthma or something kicking. I remember he had to sit in the back of the record studio with a little breather, trying to take care of his asthma. It was horrible. Sorry, Ricky. Oh, this major compositing here. We used to use 3D to composite all these little pictures with the scan lines into these backgrounds. Took our 3D department, John Soar, Hansy, and his crew, a long time to get these done. We had a lot of animation. Each little scene was animated as a full scene, and then we just dropped them back in there. Slab Rankle. You can see the design was taken off of, by John Fountain, I believe, was taken off of Judge Dredd, the 80s comic book from Britain. I believe Brian Bolin was the old artist of that book. I can't remember who played Slab's voice, but he did a really good job. Just really a really nice, tough voice. And the acting was generally, I think, done pretty well by the board artists. Poor Frank left the series. Frank Conniff. Well, he was actually sort of cast out. He was sort of brought in as sort of just a safety net for Jonan and the crew in the writing department by Nickelodeon. They were a little bit concerned about Jonan being too young of a writer, and everybody on the crew in the beginning were basically amateurs. Rob, Eric, and Jonan, and they just didn't want anything to really screw up, so they got in Frank, who they knew was a decent writer and had a history. Here comes Kyle Menke's madness. The whole mall transforming. Just Kyle would always get out of hand. And I mean, it was good. I liked his stuff. A lot of people loved his stuff. Jonan never liked his stuff. Wanted to fire him all the time, I think. But there was some bad politics going on. But Kyle's work was always like this, very vibrant, very, just massive amounts of work that the guy would tackle in a very economic space of time. Massive amounts of movement, highly complex compositions and movements and effects all over. You can see all the backlighting with these lasers and the, great stuff though. Always gave a certain amount of impact and sort of a lucid style of filming. Oh, that scene with the whole animated background. When that came back, nobody realized that was in the show, I think, except the timers who, timed it. And then the animators came back, saw it. I flipped out. I couldn't believe that we had asked for such a complex shot. But it worked.